All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world and when you are watching this. You're welcome to Career Journeys Season 2. With me today in the studio, I have an amazing man, amazing professional who is going to be taking us into the world of urban planning. He was a guest on Season 1, and it was a great interview that I had to have him back for season 2. I'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself in a moment. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Taiwo Jaiyeoba. You're very welcome, Taiwo.
Thank you so much, Maya. I appreciate the opportunity to be back here again.
Thank you. Thank you for being so gracious um, in joining me again and sharing about your career journey. So I'll delve right into the first question.
Okay.
Um, would you tell us a little bit about your career journey so far?
Well, yeah, thank you for that question. First of all, I know that not everyone listening to us is an urban planner, but there are certain principles in my career journey that will really be applicable to anyone, regardless of their profession. But I've been doing this for 30 years. Planning really is all I know, whether planning, land use planning, or transportation, especially public transit planning. So I've been doing this for roughly 30 years. I had my master's degree from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, and called Great Ife. And then, of course, had my bachelor's in geography as well. And then I have an MIT certification from MIT certification in global leadership. And having worked in different countries, Nigeria, Botswana, the United States, and consulted on projects in other parts of the world and in different professional settings and sectors, I can say that I've enjoyed most of the ride. I deliberately didn't say all the ride, but I've enjoyed most of the ride. And frankly speaking, have very, very few regrets or do-overs. So been doing this for a while. I love what I do. I wake up every single day looking forward because no 2 days are the same, especially when you're a planner and you've also been in other roles as well. So yes, that's been my journey so far. It took me from Nigeria to Botswana to the United States, and I've loved every bit of it, except for a few places.
We won't ask what those places were.
I remember when I first got to Botswana. It was never my intention, frankly speaking, to stay and live in Botswana. It was a pass through. I was visiting my father, and that was back in 1992. On my way, supposedly, to England to actually go to Oxford and study another master's degree in urban design. That was the plan. And so when I got to Botswana and realized that it's a country that I quickly fell in love with, and so I stayed in Botswana, in the capital city of Gaborone. And I remember telling my father that I'm no longer going to England for that master's degree. I already have a master's degree. I'm not going to go for a second one. I love it in Botswana. I like to work here as a planner. So when I said that, my goal and my hope was that I would work in the city of Gaborone in itself, not knowing ultimately when I got a job with the federal government in Botswana, they transferred me to a small town called Bobonong on the northeastern part of Botswana. The first few weeks and months were rough. Those were uh, things that I didn't enjoy at that time because growing up, I did not know how to live in a rural setting. My entire life and career had been built around living in towns, whether they were small towns or large towns. This was the first time that I will actually be in a very rural environment. And so adjusting to life was very difficult. So the first few weeks I did not enjoy because I saw myself planning in a big city and not necessarily in a small town. But over time, got over it and really made the best of the 2.5 years, the rest of the 2.5 years that I was there. I met some lifelong friends, I should say, from Ethiopia, from Zambia, from Zimbabwe, people who ultimately became family, even up till today that I met then. That was back in 1996. And so yes, and when I came to the United States, of course, and in living Sacramento, and there were a few things that I just didn't enjoy about that experience, also because I knew nobody, we knew no one, and it was at the beginning it was rough, but ultimately spent about 13 years living in California in Sacramento. So the beginning of some of those rides were rough. And then, of course, when you've had to make some tough decisions as well that didn't go very, very well, you don't enjoy those, but you learn from them. So, like someone said, there are two things we do: we win or we learn. And so, I felt that the parts of the ride that were not enjoyable were rides that I learned a lot from.
Wow, that is so profound. As you were talking, I was wondering what kept you from quitting in those tough moments, first in
Yeah.
Botswana, then in Sacramento, where things weren't exactly what you had envisioned they'd be like, especially at the beginning. What kept you going?
It's very interesting because always looking forward that better days will come. I'm an optimist. And then, of course, there is this passage. I'm also a person of faith that talked about the fact that they saw a better city. It says that they saw a better city. I believe it's in the book of Hebrews 11. They saw a better city whose maker and designer was God. And I always felt like when those moments were rough, my anchor was really looking forward to what's in the future and how can I get myself ready for that. Those things kept me going, that it was a season and that this beginning could be rough, but if you never really know exactly what the rest of the ride will be like. You never really know exactly what the outcome ultimately will be. So those types of things anchored me, just being able to keep thinking about what the future holds. And also, I had mentors, and hopefully, I have an opportunity to talk about mentoring. But I had mentors who I remember very well when I got to Sacramento, and it was really rough. And I called one of my mentors, is a professor from Uganda. I called him and I said, I want to come back to Botswana. And I remember him saying to me, stay there. You've only just got there. You need to stay there and get over this first rough patch. It's only at the beginning. You never really know exactly how it's going to ultimately turn out. Then I had another mentor, Rod Talbot, who is a New Zealander. He's from New Zealand, but at that time he lived in Botswana. He actually flew to Sacramento, California to visit, and he saw the condition. It wasn't really great. And he said, what I'm going to tell you is this is a season. You need to push through this season because at the end of the day, you came here for a brighter future. You've got to wait and let that future come, rather than quit. So those were the things that kept me going during those rough patches of the ride.
We may as well jump into the mentoring conversation.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on mentorship? What's your approach towards it, either for people that you mentor or people that you look up to who mentor you?
Mentoring is very important. It's one of the reasons that I am where I am today. I'll be very honest with you, professionally. And in fact, as a matter of fact, in a few weeks, I'm going to start a professional mentoring platform on YouTube where I can actually provide opportunities for people to ask questions as to how did you get here? What are the things you learned along the way? I believe that mentoring is a two-way street. So you give, we give and we learn. A mentor must be willing to teach, must be willing to sacrifice their time. And a protege must also be willing to be teachable and be willing to also sacrifice time. I'm still doing mentoring today. I have an executive coach every 2 weeks. It started as every week. Now it's every 2 weeks. I have other friends that are friends, but I have mentoring relationship with them as well because they've been through some things that I don't know or don't understand that I can learn from them. And I have professional mentors. I have people mentor me in my profession. I have spiritual mentors. I have financial mentors. I believe that you've got to have people who speak to you to equip you to succeed. And you can't put a price on mentoring. I always believe that for me to mentor people, they've got to give their time.
Yeah.
They've got to be willing to, to seek me out. Not necessarily me always having to be the one to be running after them. Because that's what I do with my mentors. I'm the one who is seeking them out. When I want to make career decisions, when I want to make some future major decisions, I reach out to my mentors. And that has been very helpful for me. So I receive mentoring, I give my time, I sacrifice. And by the way, sometimes it involves you paying to be mentored. And so because it makes it formal, it makes it a relationship, because you're putting something in the hands of someone who is releasing something to you. And so a protege must be willing to be teachable, make some sacrifices, a lot of it, and a mentor must be willing to teach and make some time and give into people. One of my favorite quotes is this: legacy is what we leave in people. Legacy is what we leave in people.
Oh,
And
that's
so the best way to do it is to mentor.
oh wow, that is profound. What are top three qualities you look for in someone before determining that, oh, it's worth my time investing in this person, mentoring this person?
So first of all, you have to. It's like what I do. If I want to go to a counseling session, I want to set aside a time to at least talk to that counselor, right? And it will be a pro bono moment, maybe 15, 30 minutes. That point in time, that counselor is also checking me out while I'm also checking them out if this is the right person for me. If someone wants me to mentor them, I spend the first call to kind of figure out exactly what's in their heart. What exactly is the motivation behind this mentoring? So that's very important. Is this person just trying to get mentored because there's a crisis in their lives at this moment? And then maybe when they feel there's no need for it, they forget all about that relationship and they move on. That's very important because mentoring can be seasonal, but it can also be long term. And it can also be something we have permanently. I have a mentor in my life who has been there since 1999. Yeah, she was my boss. When I worked in Sacramento, she was my boss. And she's pretty much walked the journey with me up until this very moment in my life. She's one of the most amazing African American women who has been forced to break a lot of glass ceilings, and she's guided me through. But that relationship though didn't just start that way. It became long term because she saw something in me. When she saw that thing in me, she said, "I'd like you to get to your goal." So that's very important. That if I'm talking to you, I got to see why you're doing it, the motive, and I've also got to be able to see something in you. That you're willing to really take this and run with it. And the third thing that I would look for, frankly speaking, as we go through this is how much of yourself are you willing to put into this? So it's not just about us setting time to talk, but are you going to actually carry out what we're talking about? Are you going to do that? That's very important. When I ran into a situation which was transitional for me, and I didn't know where to go, to my mentor, Dr. Beverly Scott. And I said, I don't know where to go at this. And, one of the things that was very interesting that she did for me was she connected me with somebody that I did not have a relationship with, but she did. She didn't have what I was looking for, but she connected me with somebody who did. And that's very important. As a mentor, I have to have relationships. I have to be willing to lend my network to my proteges or mentees. But in order for me to do that, there's got to be a trust element in that relationship for me to let you have access to my, network. And so it's not like I'm going to connect you with them and then you're going to use them or exploit them, but you're going to necessarily let them also guide you and help you and shape you. And so it's a relationship that has been built over time that has trust in it, and my motivation is very clear. And also I'm willing to put myself, my time into this process.
Oh, wow. Wow. There's a lot of amazing nuggets you dropped in there that I wish we had more time to unpack. But maybe this is, this is an invitation to season three.
Hey, listen, I love coming. So,
So we'll move right along and let's talk about leadership.
yes.
Okay. What has your leadership journey been like, especially as a man of color who has
Mm,
led in situations, in um, environments or settings where I know you've been the minority
yeah.
in a lot of places. So, what has your leadership journey been like?
It's not been easy. So I will start by saying that when you are a black person or you are Hispanic, when you have an accent or you don't speak English fluently, or when you are a woman, or if you are disabled, and you're just not like everyone else, the journey in leadership is not easy. And I have been fortunate. I mentioned mentors. They equipped me to really be in positions of leadership. I mentioned Dr. Beverly Scott. She gave me my very first leadership opportunity. It wasn't the opportunity that I wanted when she was my boss, but the one that I wanted, she did not promote me into that position, but she promoted me into another position, which actually laid the foundation for my successes, my career in this country. But when I came to the United States, I became a planning director in Sacramento, the courtesy of Dr. Scott, obviously, because she saw that I'd done this elsewhere before, even though it was on a small scale. And after working as an assistant planner, as an entry level planner, she promoted me to be planning director for the Sacramento Regional Transit. It was only a matter of time before I became an executive director in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and of course, planning director for the city of Charlotte, which is the 15th largest city in the country. And was able to do some amazing things there. I became assistant city manager in Charlotte, and I went on to become city manager. All along, I always felt that I didn't get my position because of my color. I got my position because I felt that I was qualified for it. But I also felt like it was an opportunity for me to demonstrate that minority people who are qualified and experienced can actually occupy these positions. There is no promotion that had ever been given that I was given simply because of my color. Because frankly speaking, even if people overlooked my color, they couldn't necessarily overlook my accent. And there are some things people will not overlook. They may overlook your color, but they may not overlook your disability. They may overlook your color, but they may not overlook your gender. And so it's very important that qualifications become part of it, because whatever they overlook, they should never be able to overlook the qualifications. And so as a person of color, even sometimes when you are qualified, you still get overlooked. But you have a very strong case. You have a very good case, justifiable reason to say, I am not only qualified for this, I actually can do the job very well. I was an associate vice president with a consulting firm. Then I became a regional leader for that consulting firm. And now with Lockne Engineering, I have a national role at 24 states, 45 different offices. I believe that, all of those opportunities in my career, being able to get opportunities to be a leader, it started from that old small town that I disdained initially when I first got there. And that experience in leadership actually is what has propelled and prepared me for now. And of course, when you are in a position where people are looking for a leader who looks like the community that they live in, and whether you're Hispanic or you're a Black person or you are an Asian American, I don't care what that minority status is, you have to give yourself a chance. You have to say that I can do it too, regardless of my disability, my accent, my color, my ethnicity. Leadership at the end of the day is not how many people I lead, but the impact on the people that I serve. And I believe that that's important. So whether you lead one or you lead 100, in Greensboro I led 3,300. In Lucknow, there's many offices across the country, and then you serve clients of many cities. The same principles apply. Serve the people, impact them. It's not about how many we lead, but the legacy that we leave behind.
And you are so qualified to speak about leadership, and um, based on your many roles.
Yes, I feel.
um, the one you are transiting from and the one you are transiting into. But
Yes.
like you said, it started with something that seemed small, like a
Mm,
little opportunity.
mhm.
How important is it to not despise little opportunities or opportunities that don't look like it?
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. That's a really good question. There's a quote that I always remember, and it rings in my mind a lot. I think it was by David Jeremiah. And he said, "Don't despise the days of obscurity."
Hmm.
That Elisha was pouring water on Elijah's hands. And when he did it, it was in obscurity, not even knowing that ultimately he was going to be a prominent person. And so I've always let that also guide me. When I left Greensboro, a city of 300,000 people, managing 3,300 people, I was asked as part of my consulting work to be an interim town manager for a smaller town of about 11,090 people. There were people who thought, oh my gosh, why would you go from that to that? But it's because they failed to see the big picture. It's not about obscurity. It's about what you're learning from every opportunity you've been given, whether small or large. There is always a bigger picture. There is something you're being prepared for. And so if you learn from managing one in an obscure position and nobody knows you, nobody notices you, nobody appreciates you, I can 100% assure you that there's a bigger picture somewhere in the mind of the one who orchestrated you to be in that position in the first place. So if you're faithful to it, even though it's little, it's small, if you're faithful to it, the sky is not even the limit. The most damaging thing we could do to ourselves is to measure our leadership ability by the size of the position we've been given. You don't want to do that to yourself because you don't know exactly where that is taking you to. It's a leverage, it's a platform, it's an opportunity to springboard. It may not be obvious right now, but ultimately people will see you where you are and they will pull you out of it and say, you know what, you did it very faithfully, you can do it here. Many people understand that President Obama used to be a community organizer. He went on to become a Senate president. Senator rather from.
I thought about Joseph. Wasn't Joseph in pretty much the same position where he's in the prison one day and the next day gets an opportunity to be in the palace? And it
Yes,
was attitude in prison that made it possible for for someone to confidently recommend him.
yes.
You
And
know?
that's how it started. It was in obscurity.
Yeah.
And so we often tend to hide ourselves if we think that the position we're in is small. We also try to size ourselves by our position. That is wrong. Never let the position we are in define our size. So you are leading a town of 5 people. That does not necessarily mean that you have to reduce yourself. You always have to see that that lesson is preparing you for something larger and bigger than you. And Joseph was mindful enough to think about that. I'm not going to end in the Potiphar's house. I'm not going to end in prison. There is a bigger place because he already had a vision that predated all of those experiences. That's why I always believe that leadership starts with vision. When you have a vision, it doesn't matter where life takes you. Your vision will guide you until you get to the pinnacle of where you want to get to.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. So, what do you do when your vision starts to get dim for you personally?
Yeah.
When your professional vision, life vision, when you start to see that it's waning, what do you do to Just
every
get
you
it
know
back up and make it clearer again.
every vision has dark days, and every visioner gets to a dead end. And you have to ask yourself, as a planner, I always think about that, right? We don't like all the sucks because we want it to punch through and all of that. But every vision gets to a point where you don't even see where it's going. But to me, that's when you revisit it again. I think that's the importance of writing it down to encourage you, to let you know there is something bigger. There is something. You remember the story that I shared earlier on, that when I first got to Sacramento and I was discouraged, and I called my mentor in Botswana, and he said to me, "Stay there because the future that you went for is better than the present that you are in." And that to me is the purpose of vision. If you write it down, if you share it with others, you write it, you share it in a book, it will remind you. Um, that's why vision has to be alive, right? It has to be living, because it will remind you of, don't stop here. You need to be moving forward. So when you get to that season of life where it's dark, where there's dead end, you have to remind yourself that this is not where it stops. This is not where it stops. There is another way forward, and it may mean you have to take a detour and go through another route. But at the end of the day, the vision itself stands. Maybe it's not a straight path to it, but there's got to be ways to get there. But you have to keep that vision in front of your mind, share it with those you trust so they can remind you when dark days come. Write it down somewhere, of course. If it's in a book, if you're reading a book, go back and read it again. I wrote a book, Living Huge. I don't know how many times I've gone back to read that book when I'm in down times, to remind me that they saw a city whose maker and builder was God. And if they had thought about the city where they were coming from, they would have been mindful to go back there. But they didn't, because they saw a future that was better.
Wow. Oh, I love it. Now we've talked about mentorship, we've talked about
Yes.
leadership, we've talked about vision, but we've not talked about what urban planning is all about.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and share a little bit about your passion for urban planning, what it actually means, what you do from day to day.
So let me start from the beginning. It was my dad who actually encouraged my interest in the field of planning, anything related to land use. Now, my dad was a mental health professor, and he told me that the way my mind worked was really about strategies. I can figure out how to create connections and make things happen in an environment. So when I went to study geography for my bachelor's, I wasn't really satisfied. It wasn't really what I wanted to study. I was thinking more of something in the area of architecture, or something like that, but not necessarily planning, until I got into my third year of geography, and we were asked to select one of four areas: urban geography, rural geography, geomorphology, or hydrology. Hydrology is about study of water, geomorphology, study of rock formation, rural planning. Never lived in a rural environment. I didn't know exactly what went into that. But urban planning was something that always fascinated me. So I spent the last 2 years of my bachelor's studying urban geography, and then my master's in planning. The very first class that I got into in planning, when I got into that class, I think the professor was saying something about was quoting William Shakespeare. What is the city but the people? What is the city but the people? That hooked me, because I felt if you're going to make a community enjoyable at all, it has to be about the people, not about the buildings, not about the facilities. Most people enjoy cities because of the buildings and because of the things that they offer. I enjoy cities because of the opportunities that people have there. Opportunity to eat at a restaurant, to retail, to shop. My wife calls it shop opportunities. Opportunity, opportunity to recreate, opportunity to have access to medical facilities. There's emergencies. I mean, the urban environment is full of so much people criticize the urban environment, obviously, for reasons because of crime or homelessness or maybe not kept very well. I see a city as an environment that has everything. It's about connectivity. So when I talk about planning, about land use planning, I see how transportation connects with police, public safety services. I see how you have to size the roads, the width of the roads to be able to accommodate wider buses, wider fire trucks, to let emergency vehicles be able to move easily and seamlessly. I see an urban environment as a place where you have access to water, sewer, and you don't have to ever, worry about flushing your toilet, or if you push out your garage or your garbage bin, it can be picked up. It's an integrated environment where people live, where they go to school, where they play, where they work, where they recreate, where they retail. As I'm talking to you, I'm excited about, again, the old notion of planning. However, though, that also puts us in a very tough place because planning can be very futuristic. A lot of people will say what I just said is very ideal, it's very utopia. There is no city that meets all of those things. And that may be true. But what exactly do you do in your corner of a city? If your corner of a city is your downtown, it means you live there because you have access to a lot of things that you want. If you live in the suburb, you love to live there because you have access to some things that you like. And so let's not look at a city of 1 million people or 2 million people or 3 million people, but let's look, if you break cities down into communities and neighborhoods, it becomes a little bit easier to understand why people live in cities, because neighborhoods are the building blocks of cities.
Wow. That is, I find that so fascinating. Now you are talking about cities and you are giving overview of cities, big picture of cities. Some of us have problems having big picture of our own homes, just a home.
I understand that.
I find it fascinating that you are talking about cities and roads and recreation and all those different things. I think it's just brilliant, just brilliant. Um, I have a question for you,
Yes.
and we have touched on this here and there already. But what have been your greatest challenges in your field?
Wow. One word that comes to mind is transition. Even though a lot of my career has transition points, and a lot of what I do, even as a planner, has transition points, transition is always a tough one. When I was in high school and also in college, I did relay race. And in a relay, right, you start by holding a baton. And you may finish the race, but if you drop the baton, you could be disqualified, right? And so that we used to be told when we were running relays that it's not the speed. The most fragile time in a relay race is the transition time between one person passing the baton to another, because the person in front wants to move quickly. The person who has the baton wants to make sure that they catch up. And so you've got to grab it. Transitions are always very challenging. So whether it's transitioning from Nigeria to Botswana, or transitioning from Botswana to the United States, and then in the United States, I lived in California, then transitioned to the state of Michigan, then Michigan to Georgia, and then Georgia to North Carolina. Transition is never easy, especially when it involves other people. When it involves a significant other, or it involves your children, or it involves other employees that report to you or that you report to. Transition has always, for me, been the most challenging part of my life, but also of my career. How am I going to adjust to this new environment? How am I going to adjust to this new geography? How am I going to adjust to this new role? How am I going to adjust to this new level? Especially if you are promoted above people who were above you before. And now your boss, your former boss now reports to you. That's happened for me, where I was promoted ahead of my boss. How do you transition into those? How do you transition from being an employee to a supervisor to a manager to a leader. I was sharing with someone yesterday that the more you move into a leadership position, the less technical you become. And so, because now you're not leading projects, you're leading people. And even if you're managing projects, you get people to manage them, but you manage those people and you lead them. And so transition has been a challenge for me, but it's also been the opportunity for me to thrive, because I know you can't stay in this transition environment forever. It has a time limit on it. And so you've got to make sure that you transition well and you transition in time. And so for the field of urban planning, we're going through a lot of transition right now. Especially for someone like me, who is not just a land use planner, but also a transit planner who has been in city management. We're going into a period of transition where, there's a lot of people who have been in the field for so long who are retiring, and finding people to replace them is a chore because the labor market is very tight. We're also going into a period where technology is beginning to make a lot of advancement into what we do as planners. And so how do we handle those transitional moments is going to be very important. For us, regardless of where you are, whether you're in the United States or outside the United States, the field of planning is coming into a very different place than we have seen before, with the impact of climate change, talking about how resilient are our cities or our communities, how equipped are we as planners to address some of these things: homelessness, affordable housing, crime. People look to us as planners to address them. And if you're not well equipped to address them, you may fail your city and you may fail your community and the residents who live there.
Wow. Speaking of transitions and change and, everything going on, I know that artificial intelligence is causing disruptions and also creating opportunities in many different fields, all across the board. Could you speak to some of the things you are seeing in urban planning where artificial intelligence is concerned, where the ease of adoption is concerned, how it's affecting the job market in your field?
It is. We haven't seen it in a large scale yet, as others are, because planning deals a lot with people, and people are very sensitive to anything that would disrupt their lives. So the impact of artificial intelligence on urban, and this is something that I talk about quite a bit. The impact of AI in urban planning is not yet fully tested, but we can already see some potential that will benefit the field of planning. The fear is always that technology will replace people, or that technology will eliminate social interactions and natural human engagement. People always worry about that, and we've seen that with social media and all of that. But I believe AI is in a different level on its own. I believe AI can actually explore ways by which human connectivity can trigger productivity and innovation. You said it. It can be disruptive, but it can also be creative. I think AI is not just technology, but it can explore ways by which human connectivity can trigger how much more productive can we be, and how much more creative and innovative can we be. Urban planning by itself, I've been saying this, is really about people connecting in urban places. So planning is about people. That was really what got me into it. What is the city but the people? Urban planning functions best when we let people influence policies. And AI can influence this, and it can definitely change the way we do business as planners. I know we're worried about it. I'm told that worldwide we're looking at about 300 million jobs being replaced as a result of AI. But there are areas where AI can actually help with planning. One, AI can actually help urban design. I started my career in the field of planning with focus on urban design. I would design subdivisions and residential subdivisions, commercial areas, road network. I would design all of those things, and it was with longhand that we would do that. We no longer do that, right? We do that using some form of GIS, or geographic information system, or some what we call computer-aided design technology that allows us to do that. I think AI will take that to another level. Not only will it design what communities will look like, it will actually create smart cities that will talk about integrated systems of living. There are examples now in the world. My wife and I were in Dubai back in September, and we saw what creativity could look like in cities. Even then, Dubai is not even at the top of AI technology in terms of implementation. I would take two cities ahead of Dubai. They are smaller, but one of them is meant to be really small. Is in Japan. The other one is meant to be big overall, a very large city. It's called Amaravati in India. Now, Amaravati in India was built on the notion of sustainability, that everything that will be there will be able to harness the power of technology for people to live in a productive life, healthy life. And it's already started. People already moved into the place and they're living there. It's projected to have millions of people living there in the future. I'm more interested in Toyota's Woven City. Toyota is building this city called Woven City at the base of a Fiji mountain in Japan. When it's done, all said and done, it will have about 2,000 people live in it, spread over 175 acres. I have seen the video. I've listened to the CEO talk about it. It's supposed to really be the city of that future where AI is supposed to take over everything, from urban design to delivery of services. It will connect people with their vehicles, which is already happening right now, but only for people here and there, right? It will help people communicate through data, through sensors. It will be able to tell the full impact of AI technology and maximize the potential of AI. So if urban planners want to see the full extent of what AIs can do for planners, for designs, I would say they take a look at Amaravati from a sustainable point of view. But if anybody wants to even see what the future cities can look like, what future cities can look like from an AI point of view, they should go on YouTube and Google Toyota's Woven City, WOVEN, Woven City. It's 175 acres, we'll have 2,000, and it's incredible what it's going to do, because the smart homes, it will not just be one smart home in a subdivision like we have today. All of them will be smart homes. They will take advantage of full connectivity. They will use sensors to get your trash out, to restock your fridge, to get the doctor. It really will take care of how healthy you become, how productive you are, power storage, water filtration facilities, all of those things will be hidden underground. Then above ground, you're going to see plazas, car-free promenades. You're not going to see wires all over the place or drainage systems all over the place. So those are things that I know the world of possibilities. It can engage people because planning is about engagement. The caution is that will it be done in an equitable manner so that it doesn't just benefit the people who can afford it, but also benefit everyone. That's the challenge that we're going to have. But I believe that measures are being put in place by governments all over the world, by researchers, to make sure that AI does not become invasive. We just have to be careful that it doesn't create false information or misinformation in the field of planning. So yes, the potential is enormous, and we just have to carefully walk through that over the next several years as we fully grasp the implication of what AI can do for us. I could talk about this all afternoon because this is something that I talk about to some of our young professional planners as to how we need to get ready for those transitions to happen, especially with AI.
So how quickly do you think the US is going to move?
I
type technology.
I think like everything US, we come up with the ideas quickly. We're very innovative. We have some of the best and most advanced researchers in the world. But when it comes to implementing, we take our time shaping policies that ultimately help to implement that. And that's because we are always careful about the impact on people, because we don't want people to be, people are already in a way being treated unfairly and in an inequitable manner. We do not want AI to further make that worse. So I know that President Biden, actually signed some measures or executive orders that will put some measures in place to help us address some of the challenges. I believe there's a couple of towns being designed in the US right now. I believe both of them are in Arizona. One, I believe, is being designed and built by Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft. And there's a couple of them that are actually looking at building some of these cities from ground up that will explore the full implications of AI. Those will be testing ground for us to know exactly what that will look like. How are they able to source water? How are they able to provide those type of technology that will actually let people live a very productive and creative life, even as they live in these communities? I don't know how many jobs in the planning will be affected, but I know that AI can project for us what the future of climate change, what the impact will be like. It can project for us. I don't think it can predict, but it can project for us the impact. It can help us to prepare. I am looking right now at this moment, I'm actually looking at how AI can help us solve homelessness in the United States and the issue of housing availability. That's something, maybe I can talk more about that at some point in the future, but I'm looking at that right now. I'm also looking at how AI can help us improve public safety. Once you start telling people what the benefits could be and they can see it, I think we can implement it faster. But we still have to be very mindful that we have to put measures in place that will not make people take advantage and exploit it, in a way that will, create inequity, another layer of inequity.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you for that detailed input and comprehensive insight you've given us into the world of AI in urban planning. Like you said, there's still a whole lot more we could talk about.
I mean, technology is all you do, right? I mean, so you can definitely relate to what I was.
I took a class, I finished a course a month ago or so, and our capstone project was about, my group chose to look at designing smart traffic systems using AI for urban cities. And some of what you have shared, really, I'm thinking now that, wow, why didn't I come consult with you when I was stumped on some things? But it was really quite interesting to see what the future can.
Yes. I mean, when you I've taken Waymo in Phoenix, where you order it like Uber, it's driverless, right? You order it like Uber or Lyft. It has your name on it. It waits for you. It's there. You get inside the Waymo vehicle. It has no driver, but the fact is that if you don't put off your seatbelt, it's not going to drive. It's not going to move. It will tell you to put your seatbelt on, and then it connects with pedestrians who are crossing the streets. It actually shows how you have to be careful. It's able to sense other vehicles, whether in front or in the back or even on the side. So the technology is there. I think it's really more of integrating all of these things into a functional city system.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Where did all the time go?
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
We've not even gotten into conversation about your new role and what you're looking forward to there. But I do know that you have a hard stop actually right around now. And I want to appreciate you once again for being on this show with us and sharing from your wealth of knowledge. I know that many people who are going to watch this are going to glean so much from what you've shared. And
Thank you.
I said, I look forward to having you on another episode of Career Journeys. Thank you
We'll
so much.
definitely be talking about Lochner Engineering and my role at that point in time.
We look forward to it.
Thank you.
Bye bye, everyone. Thank
All
you
right
for
there.
us. See us next time. See you next